Hello everybody, this is Heidi with So Heidi. I'm going to demonstrate to you how to create a seamless repeating pattern in Photoshop using tools both from Photoshop as well as Adobe Illustrator. What I've done first is created a motif in Illustrator, just a simple swirl. What we're going to do is we're going to use this as a vector smart object in Photoshop. If you haven't worked with the smart objects or don't understand what they are very similar to how a link works in InDesign, meaning that you can have multiple instances of one smart object throughout a Photoshop document, and if you edit that smart object, it will cascade those changes throughout all instances of that smart object in Photoshop. And you'll see how that can work to your advantage a little bit later on in the tutorial. So first we have our smart object. What we're going to do is just copy that to our clipboard. Then we'll go to Photoshop and we'll create a new document. And I'm just going to do 600 by 600 pixels. Now what I'm going to do on a layer is using my marquee tool, I'm just going to create a square, leaving a decent amount of space around the edge because that's going to allow for space for our motif, our repeating motif, to bleed off the edge. I'm going to then fill that space with a color, so edit, fill, or shift F5, and we will choose color, and we'll just use the gray that's currently there. Okay, so we've got that. Now we still have our our vector graphic on our clipboard, so we'll just say paste, and in here you're going to want to specify paste as a smart object. So say okay. Now it's a little big, so I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Place that, and I am going to place it somewhere along the edge. Now you'll notice I get a little pink highlight along the edge, and if you're using the software and you get that as well, you'll also notice you can feel your motif snapping to the edge. Now that's due to having your smart guides on. If you don't feel that, you don't have that happening, make sure your smart guides are on by going View, Show, Smart Guides. You want that checked. Okay, so you've got that. Now if you hold down the Alt key as well as Shift, you can select your smart object. The Alt key makes a copy of it, and holding Shift restrains the position on the X or Y axis. Pull that over to the other edge, and again you will feel it kind of snap. And what it's doing is it's snapping in the middle, and so this seam line, once it lines up with this seam line, are going to meet and match perfectly to create a seamless edge. So let's create another instance of this. Again, if you just hold Alt, you'll make a copy. Let's transform this a little bit, rotate it around. Felt it snap. Alt and Shift to keep it. You need to keep it in the same X or Y axis so that it lines up when you create your pattern, okay? Alt, Command T to transform, or edit transform from the menu above. Felt it snap. Now you want to make sure it snaps to the edge of the artboard and not to the edge of another shape. You'll notice if it's snapping to the edge of another shape, you'll get a pink line along the edge of the two shapes, but that's not going to help you when you're trying to line it up on the other side. So it has to snap to the edge of your solid color shape in the background. Alt Shift, pull this over, and there it's snapping to the edge. Alt to make another one. Let's transform. Let's make that guy a little bit smaller and rotate. Put that up there. Snap it to the edge. Alt Shift, pull it down. If you have not yet purchased a Magic Mouse, it's not my favorite tool in the world. It's a little bit sensitive for my fingers. I tend to accidentally zoom in and out a lot more than I would like to, and am constantly bouncing around my artboard. So you'll probably just want to make a few more and fill in the middle of your pattern. These ones are going to repeat, but they aren't going to seam up with any other shapes. So the exact placement doesn't matter, and it's just really up to you. So I think that we need, let's just put one little tiny one over here. And right there. Okay. So now we've got a pretty good, decently even layout. It's not perfect. You can tweak on your own a little bit more. Next, what you're going to need to do is you're going to select the space of your pattern. So go back to your first layer where you have your solid shape block. Using the magic wand tool, select the outside space and then select inverse, which you can do by going select inverse. Okay, that will then select exactly the gray shape area that you've defined. Once you have that selected, you're going to say Edit, Define Pattern, and give that a name. We'll call that Swirls. Okay, now you're going to create a new document, and it needs to be big enough so you're going to be able to see more than one repeat. So we'll do 1000 by 1000 since our other file was 600 by 600. Now you select everything in there, Edit, Fill, or Shift F5, and here's where you get to choose what to fill it with. Fill with a pattern, and then you choose your custom pattern from this drop down, and there is the little swatch of the swirls we just made. So you say okay, and there's your seamless repeating pattern. Now the really fun part. Remember we had originally created this swirl in Adobe Illustrator and pasted it in as a vector smart object. So if you come into the original file where you created your repeating pattern swatch, double click on your vector smart object. It'll open it in Illustrator, and let's say you want to have your design be done with a star instead of a swirl. Let's give it a green fill, and it has a black outline. We will just say save. It'll save it over the original swirl vector smart object. Go back to Photoshop, and it automatically updates. Now it was a little bit bigger than the first one, so we do have a little bit of collision, which is probably okay. You could rearrange the ones on the inside a little bit, but the ones that are on the outer edge are automatically snapped and are going to line up perfect again. So you will say again, Edit, Define Pattern. We'll say Stars, New, Control A, Shift F5 to fill it. Custom pattern, there's our star pattern, okay. There we go, seamless repeating pattern. Okay, so it's a really great, powerful tool. It's a great way to play around with different motifs for your repeating pattern quickly without having to create a new repeating pattern every time, utilizing the linkability of the Vector Smart object. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I am available for private customized Illustrator tutoring. You can check out my website at www.sewheidi.com.